our brisket math problem that says 12, we have to start with 12, a 12-pound brisket, correct? Number one, how many portions in a 12-pound brisket? We're all good so far? You have a 15-pound brisket?
No.
Oh. Okay. 12-pound brisket. All right. So last class we went over, and if you didn't get this, you can go back to the video from the last lecture, and the very last slide is all of the formulas for each one of these problems written out. Okay. It might be tedious. So that's some of y'all I gave 2 papers to because they're identical, but that way you can write all the formulas on one, and then you can write the numbers on the second one. Okay. It might be tedious to write all of those formulas out, but it is going to help you understand the concepts and to stay more consistent and do the step by step by step. Once you do it over and over and over again, eventually it's going to become second nature, okay? And I don't know if that's going to take you 5 times or if it's going to take you 500 times. But in the end, the goal is to be successful. And so if you're someone who needs to do it 500 times, then to do it 500 times, all of a sudden it's going to like, boom, it's going to make sense, okay? I promise, one time it's going to be like, okay, this is it, okay? So let's go number 1 first, okay? So number 1, we're asking how many portions in a 12-pound brisket. But the first thing we want to do before we set this problem up, before we actually start working on everything, let's go through the this wording up here and figure out what we already know. Let's go sentence by sentence. Okay, so what in the first sentence, well, not the first sentence, the second sentence, what looks familiar? As purchased, okay? So that is our as purchased right up here, as purchased cost. I would write this in the column or somewhere on the paper. As purchased cost, what is it?
$4.95.
$4.95 per pound. So what does that mean? What's $4.95 per pound? Good.
The brisket cost.
Per pound.
As it is.
Right. That's when I go to HEB and I buy a brisket for $4.95 per pound. Okay. Does that mean my brisket costs $4.95? No. It's $4.95 per pound. Okay. What's the next one? The next sentence. The yield factor. Does that sound familiar? Okay.
55%.
55% yield factor. So we write yield factor equals 55%. What's next?
Is 8 ounces.
Serving size is 8 ounces. And the last thing, we sell it. That's our menu price. We sell it for how much? $16.95.
Wow.
Okay. For an 8-ounce portion of brisket. It's half a pound, exactly. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about this? No? Okay. So, let's do number 1. How many portions are in a 12-pound brisket? Okay. How many portions in a 12-pound brisket? So if we use our 24, okay, so if we say we have 24 pounds, a 12-pound brisket, we have 24 servings,
But the yield is still good.
we are going to lose some product in the yield, okay? And so remember, it is so important to apply this yield factor, okay? Not just to say, oh, the serving size is a half a pound, we've got a 12-pound brisket, we get 24 pounds out of that. We don't. Okay? At the end of the day, we don't get 24 servings out of that. So, how do we figure that out? The first step. Remember, what is the first step? Okay, so our total weight times what? Why 16 ounces?
16 ounces in a pound.
Good. Okay, and that gives us our total ounces. Why do we need ounces? Because our portion size is in ounces. Our brisket is in pounds. So our units do not match. Okay? So total weight times 16 ounces is our total ounces, and then we divide by
0.55.
okay, so we divide by our yield factor. And then we what? Good, that's our edible ounces, that's our edible portion divided by the serving size. So now let's actually put numbers to it. What's our total weight? So we have a 12-pound brisket, that's what we start with. 12-pound brisket. And we're gonna multiply by 16 ounces. That gives us our total ounces. How much is it? 192. Thank you. Why is it not erased?
What are you writing?
192 ounces. That's how many ounces that 12-pound brisket represents. Do I get to serve all 192 ounces? No. So I have to apply the yield factor. If you don't remember how to apply the yield factor, we've got our triangle. We have our edible portion, that's our part, our percent, and our as purchased is our whole. Okay? So if we're looking at, oops, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. We need to multiply by our yield factor, not divide by our yield factor. Sorry. Sorry. If I say something, be like, raise your hand, be like, that doesn't sound right. That's not what we talked about before. I was just going on autopilot. Okay? So even then, sometimes you make a mistake. Okay, so now 192 times our yield factor. What would we get? 105.6 ounces. Thank you. Make sure you keep your units consistent. And now we divide by our 8-ounce serving. This.
Sorry, on this step, we're not rounding our ounces just yet, right?
Yeah, you don't have to round your ounces. No. You can't make that 106. It's if you are going to drop something, you would drop that percent, that decimal, but you can keep it as 105.6 ounces because chances of you serving one brisket is pretty slim. So that 0.6 of an ounce is going to add up over time. It still represents product. Okay, so we have 13.2 servings. Do you all see how we get there? So out of a 12-pound brisket, we think that if you say, oh, it's an 8-ounce serving, we're going to get 24 servings, but in reality, I'm only going to get 13.2 servings. Yeah, well, a little bit more than half because it's 55% yield factor. So if I decided, as I'm going to open up a barbecue shop, that I get a 12-pound brisket, I'm going to serve 24 servings. That means for every brisket that I'm going to get, I'm going to be short almost 9 servings. Okay, so this is why this yield factor is crucial, especially in the proteins and things like that. Yes, sir.
So, like, you're basing off of this problem, like, you know that that restaurant is gonna, put 13 hours and lose 55% of the yield, right?
What do you mean 13 hours? Oh, to smoke a brisket? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So your brisket, remember we talked about in the book, there is a chart that talks about how you can you apply the cook yield test, the cook loss test, and you apply it to 5 different briskets and then take an average of those 5 because some briskets are gonna yield more than others. And so there is a general range of things that you're going to get. Now, as we talk about different products, okay? So let's say, I'm going to skip just for a moment, right? let's say we are going to talk about either creating our own hash browns with our potatoes or buying hash browns already made and already processed. Okay, so I take a whole potato, I've got to peel it, cut out all the bad spots. Do I get 100% yield from that?
No.
I don't. But if I buy frozen hash browns, do I get 100% yield out of that?
Yes.
Chances are probably yes. Okay, unless we're wasting, maybe people aren't paying attention and they burn stuff in the fryer. I don't know. But chances are we're gonna get 100% yield out of that. Which one's gonna cost more? Possibly the prepared one, but we can't decide that until we actually do it. Okay, and so yes, we're gonna spend 13 hours smoking this brisket. Could we buy brisket already prepared? We could, but if we're a barbecue restaurant, are we gonna buy someone else's brisket and serve it? Probably not. Okay, because chances are, if I go to a brisket place and I realize I can go to HEB because you're serving me HEB chopped brisket, I'm probably not gonna go to your barbecue place anymore. Yeah, I can't buy HEB chopped brisket and add my own sauce and call it my brisket barbecue. Okay, so you got to think about this as a business owner. We talk about percentage yield, we talk about cost, and there are sometimes, is it cheaper just to buy a frozen cheesecake than to pay someone that has the specialty to make the cheesecake and have it be consistent every single time? Possibly. If you're not a bakery, then possibly. But if you're a bakery, I would hope that you're not buying your frozen cheesecakes from somebody. I mean, even Cheesecake Factory, they have an actual factory that's making those cheesecakes. So that's one thing. Yes, they get them frozen, but it's their product, right? They're selling their own product. They're not selling somebody else's product. Okay. Do we see how that works? Okay.
I have a
Yes,
quick
ma'am.
question. Sorry. On the brisket, does it matter like the quality of it
Mm-hmm.
to where you lose?
Absolutely. So if it's more fatty, you're probably going to lose a little bit more of the product in the process if you have to trim it, or even now, Rudy's Barbecue serves that moist brisket, and they serve the regular brisket, and they charge more for the moist brisket, which doesn't make sense to me because they're not exactly, the fat's going to get cut off, and they're not, it's not as processed. Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's more popular. They're making more money.
And if you think about it, there really isn't as much fat on a brisket as there is meat.
Right.
So if everybody asks for moist, then they're cutting off the fatty parts of another brisket because they now have lean brisket and all they have left.
Mm-hmm. All right, and let's go to number 2. All right, so number 2. We're asking for how much in sales we should bring from a 12-pound brisket. So what do we have to do? Okay, so our selling price, that's what we're gonna sell it for. Our menu price times what? The number of servings we get. And we got that from number 1. Okay, so what do we sell our brisket for? $16.95. And we're selling it, how many? 13.2 servings, okay? So, you have a choice here to drop the 0.2 and just do 13 servings if you want to. But whatever you do, you got to stay consistent, okay? Typically, when I'm creating these problems, I will give a range of correct answers. A range, so if I'll calculate everything based on 13 servings, and I'll calculate everything based on 13.2 servings. So either way you do it, just be consistent, okay? Because again, chances are of you selling one brisket by itself is probably is probably very low. And so that 0.2 for every 5 briskets that I smoke, I'm going to get an extra serving, okay? That 0.2 is going to add up. So 16.95 times 13.2 gives me what? 223.74. Okay. So that's how much money I should expect to bring in after I've served all my brisket. Okay. Number 3. Yes, ma'am.
On the selling price, though, the selling price is what you're selling the plate for. That doesn't include your sauce
No.
or your potatoes, or is that just $16.95?
$6.95 is for 8 ounces of
For
brisket.
8 ounces of brisket.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
But it says that he sells his brisket for $16.95. Oh, portion. I thought.
Yep. So what is the portion cost of a 12-pound brisket? Okay. What is our portion cost?
$4.50.
Okay. So we buy it for how much?
$4.95.
$4.95 per pound. Okay. And my serving size is 8 ounces. So there's a lot of different ways we can tackle this, but the simplest way is to figure out what the total cost of your brisket is
Divided by your
and divide by the number of portions you have. Okay. So in this case, we have a 12-pound brisket times $4.95 per pound, and that gives me
$59.40.
$59.40. That is my total cost. Okay? But remember, whenever you're thinking about cost per portion, whenever you hear that word per, what does that word per mean? What does it represent? The divide, okay? So if we do cost per portion, so now we have our cost, $59.40, divided by, how many servings did we get?
13.2.
13.2 servings. Okay.
$4.50.
$4.50 per serving. Oops.
Question.
Yes, sir.
It says, what is the cost, what's the portion cost of the 12-pound biscuit and brisket, but it's a per?
Okay, so what is the portion cost? So that's basically cost per portion.
Oh, so.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking for the cost for one serving.
Oh. When you said per, I was confused.
Yeah, I maybe I need to update that to make sure I include the word per in it. But that is the cost, the portion cost is that cost per portion, okay? So $4.50 per serving. Questions about that? Number 4 is asking for our food cost percentage. So now, because of our steps in number 1, we got our number of servings. Step number 2, question number 2, we got our total sales. Step number 3 gives us our cost per portion, okay? Step number 4 is asking for our percentage. And so we know that our serving is $4.50, our cost. And what do we sell it for?
$16.95.
$16.95. So that is our cost divided by sales. Remember our pyramid here. Cost, percent, sales. Now, if this, again, is still something that you need to write down every single time you see a problem like this, write it down until all of a sudden that 222nd time, boom, it makes sense, okay? Or for some of you, it might be your 7th time. It doesn't matter how many times it takes you. All that matters is eventually you're going to get it. But if you need to do that and take those 2 seconds to write that triangle, it's going to make you successful, okay? So what do we get?
26.5%.
26.5? All right, that is our food cost percentage. Questions, comments, concerns about that one? Yes, ma'am.
Can we round it? Or no?
So, not round it up, okay? Because that 0.5, always have at least 1 decimal when it comes to food cost percentage, because that 0.5, right now we're talking about 1 brisket. But at the end of the year, let's say we've sold 5,000 briskets, that 0.5 is going to make a huge difference. So the 100th place, what did you actually get? Was it 26.5 or was it 26.4? 54? Okay, so you can drop that 100th place, run it to the nearest 10th, to the nearest one decimal. Okay? Good question. All right, number 5. This is where it gets a little bit drawn out. Okay? And this is multiple steps. So we book a party for 250. They're all having brisket. How wonderful and fortunate for us. Okay? They're all having brisket. How many total pounds of brisket does you need to purchase for the party? So now we're looking for what? It's asking for our total pounds to purchase. So what is that? That's our as purchased amount. We're looking at how much to order. Okay? So let's start with how much we need to serve. How many guests do we have? 250 guests. Okay, and how much is our serving size? 8 ounces. That means I need how many ounces?
230.
No, I need 2,000 ounces to serve. Okay, I need exactly 2,000 ounces to slice up. Does that mean I get to order 2,000 ounces? No. Okay. Do I call Cisco up and say, hey, Cisco, I need 2,000 ounces of brisket?
No.
No. What do I call them and ask them for? Pounds. So how do I get 2,000 ounces into pounds? This time I divide by 16 ounces. Good. Okay. 125 pounds. 125 pounds. Can I order 125 pounds?
Nope.
I could. I'm going to run out of brisket if I did. So what do I have to do? I have to apply that yield factor. So our 125, is that edible or is that as purchased?
Edible.
That's edible, okay? We're looking for as purchased. So according to my triangle here, edible, portion, yield factor, and as purchased, if I cover up what I'm looking for, which is as purchased, what's left over?
Edible portion.
Edible portion divided by our yield percentage, 55%. Okay. What do we got? 227. 0.27. Okay, so can we round that up to 0.3?
Yes.
I can't. Because that's 0.03 of brisket that I cannot create out of nothing. So I could just go ahead and make it 227.2. Okay? But I cannot make that 227.3 because that is creating brisket out of nothing. That is actually represents actual product. Okay? So I'm going to do this next one in red just so you can see that it's not correct. Okay? So if you're in this and you forget about your little triangle, little handy tool over here, and you're not sure, do I multiply or do I divide by my yield factor percentage? So in red, we're going to multiply by our 0.55. That gives me 68.75 pounds. Okay. Does that sound right? No.
You know, even wrong.
So you put it into a sentence. I need 125 pounds, so I should order 68.75 pounds. Or I need 125 pounds, so I should order 227 pounds. Which one sounds more right? Well, there's only one that sounds right. The other one is completely wrong. Of course, I don't want to order 68 pounds when I need 125 pounds. Okay? And so for that, those 5 seconds it takes to put your answers into a sentence, is going to give you which mathematical function you need to do, divide or multiply. Okay? Questions about that? Yes, sir.
So I did that a little bit differently.
Okay.
So I did the 250 people divided by 13.2, came up with 230.9,
Okay.
and that's how brisket I would eat times 12-pound brisket. And I can't really go with that number. So
Okay, yeah. So there's a way to do it that is not just this way. This one is whatever way works for you, whatever way makes sense in your head. Basically what he did is he took the 250 guests and he divided by the total portions. But that's supposing that every brisket's going to be 12 pounds of brisket. Okay? So not every brisket's going to be 12 pounds. So that's why oftentimes it's better just to go and order an entire weight. And you just need let's say I need 228 pounds of brisket. Okay? Cisco or Benny Keith or PFG, all those different food, or maybe even an independent meat vendor, okay? They're not going to give you exactly 228 pounds of brisket.
Are they gonna ask you how you want that though? Are they gonna say, do you want it in 12 or 18 pounds?
Well, they can be average, but even then, nothing is exact, always 12 or 18 or whatever.
Yeah.
They're always going to be a little bit off. So if you remember when we looked back at that, when we looked at the invoice for the camp up in Maine and the turkey breast, the deli turkey meat, it said 9-pound average, but it actually gave me the actual weight of those two turkey breasts, those turkey deli meats. So you can say I want a brisket that's on average 12 pounds, and then every brisket's going to come just a little bit different, and they're going to charge you for the actual weight that you're buying. Okay, so number 6. So we need 227.2 pounds. So number 6. Oops, I'm going to switch back to green. 227.2 pounds times what? Why 495? That's our cost per pound. Okay? And that gives me
1,124.9.
11.25.
I guess with the one.
Because of you did 0.2, not 0.27. That's why that 1124.98 is wrong. Or what is that?
okay, $1,124.64 is what that's going to cost me to buy that brisket for the 250 people. It sounds like a lot of money, right?
What,
$1,100, but
I already said $70 a pound.
exactly. If I'm selling it for $16.95 per serving,
Yeah, you
oops.
Hey guys, because the way you did your math was 227 pounds, 0.27 pounds. Got you the 1124.99. You didn't do the 0.27, you did 0.2. Yeah, that's what
So would 11.25 be wrong?
Yes, 11.25 would be wrong. Because it cost you $11,124.64. It's a dollar amount. So we pay with cents, right? So if it's a dollar amount, having 2 decimal places, there's no need to round up because it actually accounts for the dollars and cents. That's 4 pennies, or 2 quarters and a dime and 4 pennies. Okay, that represents actual money. Okay. I would charge the guests $4,237.50 to do a party of 250 people. Okay, that's just a brisket.
That's not including potato salad.
It's not including potato salad, no. Okay.
I have a quick question. Why
Yeah.
didn't we use the edible portion in calculating the cost?
What do you mean?
Why wouldn't we use 125 pounds? Because that's what we would need for us to serve the 250 guests, right? Or that's the edible portion?
That's what we need,
Mm-hmm.
but we pay for the brisket by the pound.
Okay.
Right? So that's what that yield factor comes into play. That's where I only get a certain number of portions out of that brisket. I can't just use that 125 pounds to get the what question?
So, yeah, like in this one that you're working.
The total cost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
How
so
much you would charge them? So you wouldn't charge them based off of what they're actually eating, right? You just
essentially we are charging them on what they're actually eating, but because I need to order 227 pounds in order to serve them that amount of food. So I'm paying for the brisket at 227 pounds. I'm paying for that. And so I need to charge them for that. I'm only going to get 125 pounds out of that. But I'm still ordering 227 pounds at almost $5 a pound. So because of that, that's my total cost. $1,100 is my total cost. I need to charge them for that. Okay. All right. So number 8. Number 7. Often, whenever we do events or we do some kind of private catering, things like that, we're gonna create a little extra. Okay. We're gonna do what we call an overage, and in this case, we're gonna do a 10% overage, okay? Now, the overage is not a set percentage. The larger your guest, the larger number of guests, the smaller your percentage overage. Okay, so right now we have how many? 250 guests, okay? And we're going up by how much? Okay, so 250 guests times 1.1 gives me 275 guests. Why do I do the 1.1? The 1 is my original 250. The 0.1 is my increase of 10%. Right? We all see how that works? So 250 times 1.1 gives me 275 guests. So that's an extra 25 portions, right? In this case, yes. Let's say I had 2,500 people. I'm not going to create 250 extra portions of brisket. If I did 10%, okay? If I did 2,500 times 1.1, I'm going to get 2,750. Which is an extra 250 portions. Do I think that an extra 250 people are going to show up randomly out of a party of 200? Probably not. So the larger the number, 2,000. The larger the number, the smaller your percentage overage is. We cannot say that there's an automatic percentage, an automatic same percentage. No matter what, always do 5 or 10%.
So like at 2,500, you'd probably be around 3% overage, or?
At that point, you might even just, rather than doing a percentage overage, you might just do a number of servings, right? So if I've got 2,500, I might prepare
An extra 50.
extra 20 servings, extra 50 servings, right? Just to, in the event that somebody shows up. We just want to be prepared. We don't want to run out of food, okay? We're not going to get into it, but if you really want to cover all of your costs, then you would create your menu price based on that 10% overage included. So that way you at least cover the cost of those ingredients. It's a little bit more detailed than I want to get into this, okay? And then number 8 is just a repeat of number 6, okay? The total cost for those 275 people. Questions, comments, and concerns?
Yeah, number 7, you also wanted to know how many pounds of brisket we need.
Yep, okay, so it's a 2-part question. Yep, so number 10, we have a 10% overage. So that's our 275 guests. And so now let's do that 275 one more time. There's a shortcut to do this, but let's do it. Let's work it all the way out. Okay. So 275 guests. What's our serving size? 8 ounces gives me 2,200 ounces. Divide by our 16 ounces to get our 137.5 pounds. Oops. Okay, so we have 137. That is our edible portion. That's what I need to actually slice up to serve. So I cannot order that amount. I need to divide by our yield factor.
Are we dividing or multiplying?
Oops.
Dividing.
We're dividing. If you're not sure what multiply or divide, do both and figure out which one makes sense. Or just write your triangle and see. So we need to order 250 pounds to serve those 275 people. Questions, comments, concerns?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So I didn't do the forecasting way. I put the 0.10 and then added it to the answer that I got, and I got 249.92.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
the same?
Yeah, absolutely. So you just needed the 10% increase, so you went the 272
Yes.
times 1.1.
Yeah, I put the 227.
227, yeah.
The percentage, the 0.1, and then I added that to the 227. I got 249.
Okay. So yeah, you can definitely do that. So you need 227 pounds, and you can multiply by that the 10% increase. Absolutely. Yep. And you'll see it's very, very close. Good. All right. So now 250 pounds times 4.95 per pound.
Cutting into our profit.
Okay. Yeah, so that's an extra what, $100?
Yeah.
About 110.
110. Okay. So am I going to spend an extra $110 every single time I do a party of 250?
Yeah.
You could, yeah. Or like I said, you can build that into the cost of your total of what you actually sell the brisket for. Okay. And so if we took that $1237.50, what am I doing?